Hello everyone and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. I'm Will Schick, Director of Product Development for Atomic Mass Games. And today we're going to be painting up Red Skull from the upcoming Marvel Crisis Protocol Red Skull and Hydra Troopers pack. Painted some Hydra Troopers a couple weeks ago, so if you missed that, you can watch on stream. So today we're going to be putting on paint for the man, the myth, the legend of Hydra himself, Mr. Johann Schmidt, the Red Skull. With that, let's get this camera off of me and get to work. So I've already done some prep work on this miniature. I have done mostly just the blacks, and I kind of blocked out a little bit of my lightning bolts. So we'll see where we get to on that. My goals today primarily are to do the armor, so we're going to work a lot on the metals. We'll see if we get to the face. And then, time permitting, I might work on the lightning as well. But I thought I'll just knock out the clothing really quick because it's boring and nobody needs to see me paint black clothing for the 50th time. So with that, I'm going to start with some Victorian brass from scale 75. I'm going to get some Dwarven gold. Whoop. And then maybe some Elven gold. Maybe some Moonstone. Maybe not some Moonstone. I don't know where the Moonstone went. So yeah, why not? We'll use some Elven gold. That's pretty bright. That one's closed though. Summer! I don't. I have a pin, but I'm going to try to find the open one because I know we have an open one. There we go. So we'll put out a little Elven gold, and then the last thing I'm going to need, if I can find it, is going to be some violet ink because that's how we're going to shade our metals, our gold specifically. But that requires me to find the violet ink, and maybe I will, maybe I won't. Oh, there's some cyan. We're so close. Deep blue, whatever. We'll figure it out, or we'll just use some purple. It'll be fine. All right, so we're just going to start with the brass. So I'm going to go basically with a color scheme that is very similar to the artwork that Josh, our art director, the infamous Josh Cologne, did for this character. That was based on the color concepts when we concepted this Red Skull. Because one of the really cool things about this lad is that we got a lot of freedom and flexibility to kind of create our own version of Red Skull based on some concepts. We had an amazing concept artist, Nate Fama, come in and do an actual full design for this guy. So he went through the whole creative process. Normally, when it comes to making Marvel Crisis Protocol characters, we don't have to go through that process because we can use so much of the comic book reference for the general design and character look and stuff. But when we're doing something from whole cloth, Black Widow, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. was another one that we got to kind of design using beats from the comics and then kind of create from the ground up to make something special for the Marvel Crisis Protocol universe. Whenever we do something like that, it's really important to go and do a full character concept where we get the complete ortho look. So we get front, side, back, sometimes a top down, depending on what we need for the sculpting. And that really defines, what does the back of his crazy armor look like? What kind of design elements does it have? How do these things factor in? What works? We went through a lot of different designs where he had tubing that connected to his back. He had a larger electrical conduit backpack. He had all these different elements. And we got to walk through those designs and talk about what we liked, what we didn't with Nate. And then we eventually came up with the final designs that we sent off to Marvel, and then they kind of gave some feedback on what elements they were happy with, what they kind of liked, places that we could explore a bit more, and we ended up with our final concept, which then went off to the sculptors. So it's a very cool process. Really one of those things that's so fun to get to do and to have the opportunity to kind of make your own little mark in some ways on the Marvel Universe and explore these characters in some unique ways. Took a lot of homage from the comics and other Red Skulls in the world to create something that fit in with our overall desires and design vision. We really wanted to amp up that kind of occult science amalgam of Red Skull and play with something that was evocative of kind of that classical period where you get the occult research mixed in with the science and technology and all that good stuff. So we had a good time with it, kind of talking about the idea that he took this really ornate, archaic, maybe slightly mystical armor. You know, imagine like it's a breastplate that's been liberated, stolen from some place that probably has some ties to Arthurian legend, or maybe you got it from a similar location that, like the Black Knight, and his sword came from, that kind of stuff. Then they modified it and did crazy and unholy things to it, and melded it with science, and then boom. How evil is too evil? I don't know. I mean, I think that's a personal thing. That's like how much salt is too much salt. You know it when you taste it. Don't taste evil, though. That's not a good metric for evil. They're like, there's too much evil in this salad. I balance it out with some lime, some citrus. Would love to see a game of Sentinels. I have zero doubt that you'll get your chance at some point here in the future. Won't be next week, though. Next week, we've got the new characters for S.H.I.E.L.D. So Steve Rogers, Captain America, Human Torch, the original Human Torch, specifically, Jim Hammond. And they're going to be taking on the Winter Guard. So you can tune in for that. That's going to be on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I believe we're going to have a Star Wars game going on. So you can check out some Legion action. But we're rolling back out. September is going to be the first month where we have our game streams coming back in full force. And then basically, I think it's the third week every month. Summer shut the door on me for reasons, but I think it's the third week every month. You're going to see more gameplay streams instead of hobby streams on those Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that'll be fun. We're going to get a bunch of the different staff out, have some good old times. All right, I'm going to do these vambrances in gold, and then I think I'm going to do the undersides maybe in silver. Just get some like different contrasting colors going on. And maybe we'll do the gauntlets in silver as well. So, oh, Sentinels did it. Yeah, the Sentinels are pretty cool. They were an absolute treat and experience to work on, as Dallas talked about last week when he was painting them during his stream. A lot of different iterations, like 3 different sculptors individually kind of all chipped in and made different impacts on them. We learned a lot. A lot of it was, I think, just us figuring out what we could and could not accomplish in hard plastic, getting better overall at the craft and the material, and learning a lot of valuable lessons from characters like Dormammu and Hulkbuster, and even some of the smaller but still kind of technically pushed characters, to really come up with everything that was going on. Then a lot of personal ownership among our engineering teams, with Evan just going crazy in terms of figuring out how to make the Sentinels overall kind of customizable in terms of the arms and their posability and all that stuff. While also making sure that you didn't walk away with a huge amount of excess Sentinel waste, because I don't know about some people, but for me it's always really one of those things that just irks me as a hobbyist, is when I build a miniature and I'm like, well, I have 1 miniature and a half, and it's like, why do I have the half? I want things to either be in holes or at least below half an amount of another miniature. If all you had to do is give me an extra set of legs, then why didn't you? So there's always that tension, that push-pull of options versus final product and everything. We talk about that a lot too. All right, now I really do need to find my purple ink. There's blue. Or I need to find a chestnut ink and we just won't use violet. Cyan. Blue. We have like blue ink for days, apparently. Heightened blue. Okay. Well, fine. Demon brown. What's this one? Hardened leather. That'll work. Okay. Well, I can't find my violet, so we're just going to go with brown ink, which will be fine. Let me grab a bit of this demon brown as well. And we'll just kind of do a more classic. Oh. Once we poke a hole in this brown, we'll just do a more classic kind of look. All right, so throw out some brown ink. I'm going to mix that with a little bit of this instant color, mostly to thin it out. And then I might use some of this medium to spread it out a little bit more. Spell. Spectral Wolf. Landy Violet. It's close, but not what we want. All right. So put some of that out. And then we're just going to kind of like mix these two things together. So this is a pretty traditional way to shade gold armor, is to use a chestnut or a brown ink. You want kind of like, you can use any color, but a red brown is really preferable because you'll get that warmth in there that the gold really wants. Red will play well with the yellows. By contrast, if you use a purple, the purple will work really well with the yellows and the gold as well. One of the things I really like about doing purple washes over golds is that it gives them a really nice, rich, worn look, so they look very antique-y, like they've been well used, not quite the high, like shiny polish that you get from other things. It's pretty good. It's a little thin. So we'll just take some more of this. Some more of this. Maybe we'll come back over here. Mix that up. A little less water. I want that to be a little thicker. That's better. Okay. So this is part of the process, just kind of like playing with your flow of your inks. But we want this to get all into the recesses and the shades, and if it's pretty heavy, that's fine because we're going to build it back up. So this is kind of what I want, avoiding those big puddles that you see there. Like the wash will really want to pool around that skull. And while I want it to be kind of thick, I don't want huge pools of it. So I just kind of like pull it up and I can push it around, and I've got a lot of working time with this, just avoiding those big, thick pools because it's going to be too much. But a very traditional kind of wash style, where again, that red-brown from the Demon Brown and the brown ink is going to give us a nice overall shadow and shade. It's going to help us really build up a rich, lustrous gold. And we can mostly just slop this on. If I get a little bit on my lightning bolts that I kind of blocked out, that's fine. I did that mostly because as I was working on the character, especially when I was working on like the cloth and stuff, there's a lot of places where his lightning bolts and his like cosmic energy thing that's going on, his unlimited power, as it were, just crosses over with the armor and stuff. So I did that mostly just to sketch it out. So I knew as I was going through like where the lightning bolts were, and I can kind of like play around with that and think about it when I get to really doing the lightning bolts, but also as I was painting everything else. So if I want to go back and do a little like fake OSL or cheat some OSL in there, I can do that with the knowledge that I can kind of see where that blue crosses over with everything else, and we can mess around with it. That's interesting. Notice I missed a little bit of the elbow on the cloth, but that's not a huge loss. We can just go back in here to our black. Just really quick, cover that up. And since that's on the elbow, no one's really going to see it. So I'm not even worried about the fact that I didn't undercoat that in the Hydra blue. All right. So it's looking pretty good. We'll let that dry. We're going to move over to our silver. Right here. Oh, this bottle's empty. Order more, Summer. Gross. Our gunmetal is basically out at this point, but there's enough there that we have what we need for our purposes. All right. So, get a little bit more of this out if I can. Yeah. It's like arterial spray at this point. Beautiful. We'll just throw that over there. It's done. We've cached it. Okay, so I'm just going to do the undersides of these gauntlets really quick. Here. These little panels here. And then I am going to do, I think the gauntlets themselves in silver. Maybe I'll change my mind on that depending on how I feel once everything's put together, but switching from silver to gold, super easy. And gold to silver. Really going from one metallic to another is very, very easy to do. I like using the kind of normal steel color just because I feel like that's going to play better with our blue lightning, because we're going to get, no matter what, we're going to have to do a little fake OSL on the hand over here, this hand here, because we've got a lot of cosmic power coursing through that hand, which is really cool. And well, we can do the blue glow, like the turquoise glow on the gold. I don't think it's going to read as well as if we did it on the silver, because that silver and white, or that more white silver kind of style, is just going to look so much nicer on the thing. And then kind of go in and do a little bit of blocking out this Hydra symbol on the chest. Now if we want to get really fancy, maybe we'll go back and make it a red. But for the moment, if we're just following the artwork that Josh and the artist did, that Hydra logo is just silver on the gold. So a lot of options here. You know, if you want to get really crazy, you could make the whole Hydra on the chest glow and do a glow effect with blue or whatever energy color you decided to put in. One of my unofficial rules for like lightning is that good guy lightning is blue and bad guy lightning is always yellow. Because like Thor's lightning is typically blue in all the comics, but Elektra's lightning is always yellow. So that's my hard and fast, like not official rule that I usually follow. But Red Skull breaks that rule. Like there's always exceptions. And the reason he breaks that rule is because the cosmic cube is blue. So therefore the energy out of it would be blue. If you think that's not a conversation that we had internally, you'd be wrong. It definitely was a big debate. Okay. So we'll start his Red Skull, since we've got people clamoring for the Red Skull. Start with some blood red from scale, which is pretty bright, but that's okay. Give us the ability to shade it down here. Boop. His beautiful red skull. Should just thrown everyone for a loop and painted his skull green. This is his cousin, the green skull. His name is Schultz. Schultz. All right, so there's the layer for our red. Like a purple skull? I don't know if I'd do purple skull. Not today, anyway. Some other time. Green skull, purple skull. Get all the skulls. Be the mighty cosmic red skull people. I don't know. I don't know what we're going for there. Let's do the belt buckle really quick. Burp, 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 burp. Belt buckle. Yes. I'm really not going to do anything to the back. I'm just going to leave that alone. We will do these little Hydra tentacles just to kind of match what we're doing on the chest plate. In silver. And then come over here. And for details like this, if you ever have trouble with your brush control, the best trick is to try as much as possible to use the flat of the brush rather than the tip of the brush. Because on those raised areas, it's kind of like a pseudo dry brush, so you can just use the flat and then it will catch the exposed high parts and it won't mess with the other pieces. All right, we're going to take some Victorian brass. We're going to take some dwarven gold, kind of just mix those together. I want this to mostly be the dwarven gold, but I do want a little bit of that brass in there just to kind of tie the colors together. So even if your kind of highlight is well beyond where you started with your base coat, mixing a little bit of your base color in there always helps unify your colors together in a way that makes the final result look really nice. So I often recommend that you follow that kind of hard and fast rule, no matter what you're doing, whether you're mixing, you know, base colors, shades, highlights, all that stuff. Having your initial color in there, even if there's just the slightest amount, will make a big difference when it comes to the final result, because you'll have that unifying factor in there. All right, so we're going to go pretty high with this. I'm being pretty liberal with this base coat because I'm planning on going through it with another wash just to kind of like glaze it back down. Then we'll take some Elven gold, mix it in there. And you'll notice I'm not even touching this leg greave right here. I'm just going to leave that completely dark because there's really no light that would get there outside of if we wanted to do some object source lighting from this lightning bolt, but otherwise it's under the cape. So you really wouldn't see that. And it would be pretty dull and dark. Also, the eye can't really see it either because it's hidden by so many elements. So it's just simpler and more correct to not really worry about highlighting it. And instead, we'll focus on things like the tops of the shoulder pads, the tops of the backpack, all of this stuff. Ah, yes, Wongers. That was a pretty fun moment if you've been watching She-Hulk Attorney at Law. I really wanted Summer to show up at work and tell us that her name's now spelled with a Y, but it's not where you think it is. And I'd be like, because it's not there? I'd be like, yes. Why'd you fail me like that, Summer? Of course you don't. Harsh. If anybody in the office has that kind of energy, though, it's you. You've got that ultimate, like, positive energy. Whoops, doodle. Can make that a little easier. All right. Let's see. Let's go back to our silver really quick. Do our second coat on the Hydra logo. We really built up our golds here. And so we went really bright on that second one, which is fine because now we have a lot of control with our highlights kind of blocked in and everything. We can add a little bit of silver, assuming that we can find a silver. No, we're going to the other one. There we go. This gunmetal will be a little different, but close enough. So we'll just add a little bit of this gunmetal to our gold. Ooh. And the pure silver would definitely make this a little brighter, but that's okay. So we're just going to go back in, hit those corner edges where our light would really glint. So this is how you do your super hot reflections in the gold. So we're just kind of like thinking about, okay, where's our biggest point of shine, and how's that? There, sweet. See, I gotta get quiet here for a second because I'm like trying to find directions. It's like when you're trying to find that parking spot in a busy parking lot, you gotta turn down the music. I gotta turn down the music so I can really find my zone here. And these are just little like dots of reflection, like where those hot spots are going to be, where that light is bouncing. There we go. Like right there along the rim of that. Beautiful. Okay, let's grab crimson, cyan. We're going to shade the skull of our red skull. So I'm going to use mostly crimson. I'm going to use just a dot of this Inktense cyan because this is really going to deepen our red. So blue, obviously a fantastic shade for red. You can see just how quick that went from crimson to like this really deep, really deep shade. Just going to work this in all over the skull. So you can't just use blue by itself over your reds. That will obviously pull them into the purple. I really like mixing a little bit of blue or cyan together with like a crimson, an already deep red, because I want those reds to be a little more vibrant. But it's completely up to you how you want your colors to go, how much you want to rebuild the reds from the shadows, how deep you want your shadows to be. All those things will kind of affect your final colors. Because I like my reds to kind of stay more on the red side than the desaturated purple side for their shadows, like I want a bit more vibrancy, going more towards that purple level and not going towards the straight blue level keeps those vibrancies in the shadows. So the cards in the X-Men affiliation box are going to be the new style. So they are horizontal rather than vertical. Okay, where do we want to go next? I got some blue out. We might as well do this. So we're going to grab some Inktense black. I'm going to grab our blue. We're going to mix some blue and black to make an armor wash. And a little bit of our brown. Just to dirty things up. It's pretty good. And then add just a little bit of medium here. Just to see if we can't get this to flow a little better. There we go. Perfect. All right. So we have our shadow here for our shade wash for our metals. It's on the blue side. Maybe should have pushed it a little bit more with brown ink, but we can always go back and glaze it again if we want to. I do want some pretty strong contrast between the silver on the chest and the gold, so I think having that blue against the yellow will look really nice. But it's not going to be as tied together as if we had done a more brown armor wash. And this is one of the strengths of like having inks in your arsenal and being able to play with these different colors. You can turn any paint into a wash. Inks by their very nature mixed with paints make really great washes as well. So you've got a lot of options. And if you've got things like, you know, the speed paints, the instant paints from Scale, which I'm using a little bit of here as well. That's where some of my brown wash came from. You can mix those with inks and paints as well. They're already diluted, they're already thin, so they kind of help speed up the process of making your own washes. There's a lot of different ways to get in there and really start creating your own shade tones and your own artist mixes quickly and easily. And, you know, because your paint layers are so thin, even if you wind up doing something that you don't like, it's really not a big problem because you just go back over and you can either retint it with more transparencies, you can repaint it if you want to. Like over the weekend I was working on some stuff, miniatures wise, painted it, realized that I hated it, and didn't even have to do anything but just basically go back over my work and repaint it because I was using, nice smooth thin layers. So you don't have to, strip or go through the process of cleansing your miniatures at all. You can just make it work. Okay, I want to go back over that gold really quick. Pull some more of this medium out. Just kind of make a quick glaze. I think I want, if I can find some yellow ink, maybe. I guess what I can't find. A lot of yellow, no yellow ink. There we go, Inktense yellow. So I'm going to add a little bit of Inktense yellow to this. We're just going to play a little bit in the spectrum. Let's see, that's a little muddy. So let's go here, here. Okay, and then we're just going to pull some more medium. I like using the edges of my wet palette because I'm a monster. I'm sure people out there are like, what is he doing? It's like, I don't know. It's what makes me happy. Okay. I'm going to grab this, and we're just going to kind of glaze over our golds again because I want to kind of pull them back just a little bit. I just want to give them a little bit more contrast. So I'm just going to use this glaze really quick. Kind of like tone everything down, but because I got that yellow in there and I'm keeping my paint really thin, we're just kind of like meld our really rough blends together. We're going to use this glaze to kind of tie all of our elements, like especially on this greave, we went pretty fast. Pretty loose, pretty fast. So like where my blend is, you can probably see it on camera. But like here where the edges of my blend from the front of the greave to the back is rough, I can use this transparency of my glaze to kind of pull things together, and also come back in and let's say I just want to darken up the undersides for more contrast and grab some of my original. I can come back in and push my glaze around because it's going to take a while for it to settle, so maybe I want to say, let's push this contrast here a bit more between the shoulder pads. Just push that off to the sides. We can find some darkness in there. Push that, push that. So you can really play a lot. Now we're kind of like doing a little dark lining around the edges of those tentacles. Because our paint is super transparent and kind of flowy-lowy, we can just really take our time, mess with this. And so this is the process that becomes really fun and enjoyable, is just letting yourself have the freedom and flexibility to play with your colors and see what you can come up with, Like, we never have to do this again, which is magical. Like, there's only one red skull ever to paint. if for whatever reason we're like, let's paint another red skull, that red skull can look entirely different from this red skull. So we don't have to replicate this ever again, which means that as, you know, a miniatures painter, as a hobby artiste, we really get to unlock that potential of like, okay, let's try things. Let's do weird blends. Let's explore on the palette. Let's just screw around. Because we're not beholden to try to replicate our results again. So we really get that go ahead, okay, that freedom there. Woof, too much. So just push that off. Push those into the corner. Push that off. To just do our thing, to live our best lives, as Simone would say. Come back in over here. Re-highlight those. Whoa, he's so droopy. Our blue tack is at the end of its life, I think. Grab some chainmail, put that over here. A little brighter. Whoop. Mix that up. And then we can come in and now we can start highlighting our metals. Our steel. Come over here. So again, we might push this a little bit further than we wanted. The other benefit, of course, to doing the blue wash is that our lightning, our cosmic cube power here, is going to be blue. So we already have that tint of color that makes it feel like there's a bit of OSL, some object source lighting coming from that, without us actually having to do any work. Because, well, OSL is cool and all. It's tough, and I'm not usually into it. I like to keep it pretty simple and quick. So, the less time and work I have to spend on doing OSL, or if I'll just skip it all together and be like, yeah, this lightning's bright and punchy, but it doesn't actually throw any glow on anybody, it's fine. You know? I spend so much time getting certain colors right and looking good. The last thing I want to do is go back over them with a big old blue transparency. I just want to enjoy my work. I want to love what I've done. Okay, there's that. Let's go back to our red skull red. Start picking out some of our highlights here. Those out a little bit so that they meld in with everything. All right, let's see, where are we going next? So I think grab, that's brown, this is black. There we go. Just kind of come in and There's skull eyes. Kind of better defined here. Do some really quick dark line around the skull so we get that separation. So I'm just using the black ink here because it's got a really nice working time and flow to kind of do my dark lining, because the skull is so pushed out from the breastplate that I can just kind of like mess with it and make it really work. A lot of the times just straight black ink or an ink in general is not the best to dark line with. What I would normally do is mix ink and then flat black paint and use that as my dark liner, because the paint will give it more stick and then the ink itself will give it some flow and you kind of get the best of both worlds. But with where we're at right now, it's not a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to grab some Arctic blue. Squeeze some of that out. Really quick, and then I'm just going to start going over really roughly our lightning that we blocked out. And so I just used Hydra blue thinned out for this initial like sketch out of all of the lightning effects. Now we're going to go over it with Arctic blue. I'm not super worried about this covering perfectly because I'm going to use we're going to try, I don't know if this will work, but we're going to try kind of doing this two-tone undercoat, and then we're going to take some plasmatic bolt from the Army Speed Paint line, and we're going to slosh that on. And the goal here is that, you know, the Speed Paint wants to do one thing, it wants to stretch and wash into the crevices like those high contrast Speed Paints want to do. And then because we have our Hydra blue kind of coming through in certain spots, and our Arctic blue like being really nice and bright, we'll get kind of this multi-tonality to everything where we should get a pretty good looking energy effect without too much effort on our part. And then we can easily go back in and just adjust as we want to with specific highlights and layers and little energy dots and all that fun stuff. But anytime we can achieve really great looking results without a ton of effort on our part, I'm always into it. And we're kind of just in that mode right now where we're exploring and trying things and really getting into the freedom and flexibility of Marvel Crisis Protocol art. So why not? We got nothing to lose here. Just like come into his hand, do all this little energy that's around there. And again, we don't need this to be perfectly solid. In fact, we don't really want it to be because we want all of these colors to play into each other. One of the things that we might do though, just because I might go back through And I'm going to grab some of this Purity White. Put it over here. Grab a little bit of my Arctic Blue. Mix those two together. Sloppily. But hey, it's my palette. It can be as messy as it wants to be. And then come back through and just really quick get some of those areas even more white and bright. And that should also help give us some nice spots for the plasmatic blue to really grab and look good. If you don't have plasmatic blue, like a turquoise wash or ink would work really well here. Turquoises are great for blue energy or lightning effects. Can really make everything pop super well. And again, like being a little sloppy and getting that texture in here on this is actually going to work to our advantage because we're going to get all that different tonality and a little bit of that energy texture, right? Like lightning's not smooth. It's not like we're painting some kind of vinyl or anything. We're doing some very natural, like chaotic stuff. So okay, pretty happy with that. He's definitely grown. He's the same height as the Red Skull in the core box. For those talking about in chat how he looks just bigger, but you know he's wearing full plate armor and really stretched out because he's casting his super lightning here. So, all right. Stop! Man, we need more blue tack. So much more blue tack. All right. That plasmatic bolt out. Summer, I'm going to use the hairdryer really quick. Just because we definitely don't want this to be wet when we ultimately go in there and get to it. Okay, and then we're just really going to slop this on. Let it kind of stretch and do its thing. You know what? Let's grab some of this magic blue. And we're just gonna kind of come in and let these two things mix a little bit. Just gonna like two brush these together. So I feel like the plasmatic's a little greener than I want. But the blue is like too blue, so kind of that combination just working together and making things go, I think is where we want to be with our lives here. So we'll just kind of let these mix on the mini itself, do a little pseudo wet blending. biggest thing is just making sure we don't miss any sections, because if we do, that's going to be a bit of work to come back to later. So yeah, just really letting those two speed paints mix and match on the mini itself. And then once they dry, we can go back through and add a little bit of white highlight depending on how they go, and maybe some more turquoise, maybe some more blue, maybe even a little purple. Really get that energy effect in there. Just let it all play the way that it wants to play out. A little bit of blue. Okay. And then maybe just for fun, grab some speed paint medium. Just plop that right there. Thin these colors out into like more of a glaze. And then we can just pull some over the pants, pull some over here, give ourselves a little bit of that cheatery OSL. We just go a little bit over the gauntlet where that lightning is. Here, a little bit there, a lot in the hand. Maybe a little bit over this leg, just right here. And so, of course, over the black, it's going to be really hard to see. If we wanted to really like pull that out, we could by doing some lighter, bright highlights and stuff. But this tint will be enough to just kind of give us that little bit of reflection of the light, which is all I really want. And then we can hit her with the hairdryer really quick so that it gets kind of dry. We'll see how it dries out, and then we'll go from there and be done with today. All right, so here's where our speed paint wash kind of wet blend wound up. So pretty good. The last things that we'd want to do here are to grab some turquoise. Nope, not that. Would just be to grab some turquoise, mix it with a little bit of white. There we go. So for instance, just to give you a really quick kind of like next steps for where I'm going to be going on this guy next is a little bit of turquoise, a little bit of white, mix in a really nice kind of highlight color, something like that. And this is where having like a wet palette would really pay off, because you could make kind of your progression blend really quick and easy. Ooh, pull that in. Come on. There we go. So what we do is go in here, grab a little bit of this, and then we can just kind of come in and start doing some like edge highlights and a little bit of pops of color, like so. You're just kind of like looking for those spots where you want to come in and add a little bit of that highlight. So like right here, maybe on this tip here. And again, this is chaotic natural energy, so it's not going to follow all the same things. Though you could go through and just like highlight like you would anything else and kind of look for those topmost layers, but you don't have to. And then you just come through and kind of blend those little color mixes in. So go across here. Just kind of like add that little bit of sharp white highlight. Play with that energy. The neat thing about this though is like, again, it's, you know, it's natural, kind of chaotic. So as long as you have that bit of turquoise in your white, it's going to meld in really nice. And then you can just kind of like decide for yourself where you want the hot little spots to be, those flecks of like power and energy. And then where you really want the hot to be, you grab a little bit of pure white. You just go in and you like staple on these little like spots of color. And it gives the energy texture and life. It makes it feel really powerful. And scary, like you don't want to get zapped by it. And then once you're done with this part, you can go back through and do one really thin translucent glaze of turquoise ink. You want it to be very transparent, and that'll just kind of pull all of these rough effects together. And you'll wind up with a really good looking energy effect. But again, like just stippling on these little like bright spot highlights. Doing a little bit of that edge work, pulling it down. But this is really fun because you don't have to be perfect. So you just kind of get to play around. And Summer's like, "You're supposed to be done now, Schick." And I'm like, "I know, but this is so much fun, Summer. We could just, it's actually, you know, the funny thing is like, it's not super concentrated. It's just fun. You just stipple away, stab at the mini, all that good stuff. Why stop? Why stop now? The big trick is to not overdo it, because it is really fun. So very easy to go overboard with, and you don't want to do that. Okay. But I do have meetings today, so I probably need to stop. But I don't want to. Keep going. So you get the idea. We just keep doing that over and over again. Then we come back. We do the thing. We've got a skull to finish. We've got some more finishing details on this guy. For sure, I want to go back in and like add some detail and life to the cloak and all of that stuff. But very happy with where we wound up with our gold armor. Our steel is mostly done. So he's getting there. A couple more sessions and he'll be ready to go. So thank you so much for joining us today. Hanging out, sticking around. Dallas Kemp will be on tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific. He's going to be painting up some more Star Wars stuff, so be sure to tune into that. And we will see you next week for our first gameplay streams back in action. We'll have some Marvel Crisis Protocol on Tuesday, and then a very exciting Star Wars Legion game on Wednesday. Almost said Thursday. That'd be wrong. It's Wednesday. Both those will be at the normal time, 1 p.m. Pacific. Till next time, stay good to each other, be safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye. I'm going back to painting. Not today. I'm going to finish with my little mix color before it goes bad.